Hey everyone, before we get started, I wanted to announce that YouTube and live streaming is now my full-time job. My stream archive channel has now been transformed into my streaming channel, and I'll simultaneously be streaming on Twitch too, if that's more your preference. And more details at the end of this video. I've talked about Fire Emblem ROM hacks on the channel before, and of course I'm making my own. But this, the game that is called Fire Emblem, the reincarnation of light and dark. This game is no ROM hack. This game is an unlicensed Chinese bootleg Fire Emblem game developed by SKOB, a company that had a hand in publishing bootlegs for the Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and the Mega Drive in the late 90s and early 2000s. I knew of this game. I saw it on YouTube for a little bit, but the video quality was pretty bad. I put it in the back of my mind until very, very recently. It played and looked like a Fire Emblem game, but you could obviously see the bootlegginess of the game on screen. The graphics were a mix of guided map sprites and very palette-crushed portraits of the Genealogy and Thracia games. It looked terrible and clearly ran slow as hell. And yet I needed to know, was it as bad as it looked? Surely it had to be a train wreck, right? The good news though, right off the bat, I didn't need to be bogged down by the unique story and world of this game. The only thing translated in this game is the mostly translated menu by Darman. This at least made it possible to play and know what you're doing. This made this purely a journey for the gameplay. It's easy to look at a game that looks as awful as this and immediately can it as terrible. The game starts out with this main character, a horribly Game Boy Color rendered portrait of Leif. You'll notice that the menu translation has him and the other characters borrowed for this game as their old translation names. But actually, this game has a unique story and characters. It's just that the graphic assets are 99% borrowed from previous titles in a horrible, incoherent soup of different art styles crammed together. You have FE2 animations mixed with bit palette crushed FE4 and FE5 assets, with at times eye-searing palette swaps that make absolutely no sense. Ethlyn just has green bleeding out of her face here, and Karen, her face is just messed up. But there are some positives with the graphics. The animations, while they borrow from FE2, are quick and snappy. And my favorite is the fighter with the cancel skill. He attacks the enemy and just runs off, and I actually think it's kind of adorable. Also, the map aesthetics themselves, barring the outdoor maps and I guess their limitations, are incredibly nice to look at. I am honestly really surprised that some of these maps are incredibly aesthetically pleasing. Whoever designed these maps clearly knows how height works and all that. It's a shame that they are just 4 sizes too big, but we'll get into that. The music is also kinda dope, except for some themes that honestly don't even sound like music. And it's unfortunate that the true bangers in this soundtrack are marred by engine lag. The engine itself is poorly optimized and lags a lot. If you don't move the cursor, the sprites move about fine and the music plays without issue. However, map sprites moving about the map causes a very noticeable slowdown. This is an issue throughout obviously the entire game. The only solution is just using fast forward to speed through the engine lagging with obviously emulation. This game is incredibly slow and clunky to begin with. The cursor scrolls through the map at a snail's pace, and while not terribly noticeable at first, it becomes more and more exasperated of an issue as the game progresses, due to the unbelievably massive map sizes without any enemies to fill them up. Yes, this game suffers from many Fire Emblem map design sins. Each map genuinely feels like it gets bigger and bigger for absolutely no reason. It starts out a little bigger than normal, like FE3 Book 2, but it spirals completely out of control into almost FE4 levels of absurdity. Look at this bridge map. It's just a frickin' over 50 tile wide bridge with like no enemies. This is legitimately just a giant hallway. In tandem with map sizes becoming absolutely ridiculous, there are an abysmal number of enemies in comparison. You'll find yourself spending 4 to 5 turns just straight up walking from point A to point B and so forth. It's super unfortunate, and I can't fathom why they would clearly take inspiration from Kaga's Fire Emblem titles, but not provide any way to manage map size. FE4, barring the prologue, had 64 tile by 64 tile wide maps all over the place, but at least FE4 had roads, which allowed for increased movement, as well as staves like Warp and Rescue. FE5 had plenty of staves, a literal movement growth, and movement stars. This game has Cavaliers and Pegasus Knights. Couple this with the lag gained from literally just moving the cursor, and this game can become the biggest slog you've ever played. The other map design sin? Well, ambush spawns, of course, enemies that appear at the start of enemy phase, giving you no preparation for an attack and leaving you vulnerable for instant death for no reason. In fairness, this game isn't that terrible for ambush spawns until the last 5 or so chapters. Before the last section of the game, these reinforcements are pretty weak and are never promoted units. The issue with reinforcements in this game is that there aren't any stairs. I mean, there are stairs, but literally nothing in this game will indicate a location for enemies to spawn from. They actually sprout out of the ground like plants. They only seem to be triggered by entering certain height by width areas on the map, so that's annoying. But this doesn't get rage-inducing until the last portion of the game, where the reinforcements stop being piddly little mercenaries that deal chip damage, but instead unbelievably strong berserkers, and worst of all, sages with literally the strongest magic in the game. Like, look at this. They just appear out of the ground in numbers, and just one hit kill your allies. Magic in this game is utterly broken, and Jormungand is the most busted spell in the game. It's 19 might and has 5 range, and in groups will murder anything after 2 hits because of the sheer force it has. Imagine sludging through, and I'm not joking, a 50 by 47 tile long map. It's nearing the end, and this unfucking believable hallway of 4 Jormungand mages just appear from the goddamn floor and kill your lord. You just spent 50 goddamn turns carefully baby stepping so as not to trigger reinforcements, but oops, they spawn behind you, above you, beside you, and effectively at 10 range. You are going to die. This honestly makes the final chapter in this game possibly the worst I've ever played relating to Fire Emblem, be it a ROM hack or an official title. The final chapter in this game is so ungodly horribly thought out, and I literally cannot imagine what kind of drugs these developers were on to create a near 64 by 64 tile map with hardly any enemies just to spam sages at the very end. When I played this map, I was seething and yelling at 6 in the morning, trying to power through this over 2-hour ordeal and eventually just saying screw it, letting my units die so I could end the final boss right then and there. I can't imagine what it would be like to actually play this game on a real-life Game Boy Color. It's so painfully unoptimized, and throw on absurdly huge maps with literally nothing until the floor just gives birth to 76 total attack berserkers and sages wielding the fucking nuclear codes. I've been dogging on this game so far, criticizing the graphical presentation, the engine limitations, and the absolute worst of its gameplay. However, I am going to stop here, because as frustrating as this game is to play in the end game, to have to spend so much time walking and not fighting anyone, when you actually engage enemies and level up and see your units grow, it's, and I'm not kidding, a great and dare say an addictive experience. Let's talk about the combat and the leveling system. Easily the greatest part of this wacky adventure bootleg. Similar to FE4, there is no natural way to double. Attack speed doesn't exist, and the only way you can double is with the pursuit skill. Able comes with it, but what you will soon learn in-game is that each character has a unique set of skills learned through leveling. An SP That stat below HP stands for skill points. This is a gauge that gets drained every time you use a skill, and regenerates 1 to 2 per turn if it isn't used. Imagine if instead of 3 houses combat arts not using weapon durability, it takes away from its own unique bar instead. It's basically an MP bar, with each skill taking sets amount of MP. This is actually really cool, and there are quite a handful of skills in the game. Pursuit allows for a follow-up attack, Continue gives a brave effect, Javelin allows lances and axes to be used in 2x2 range, Spear allows for 2x3 range, Cancel prevents follow-ups, Triple allows for 3 attacks in a row, Elite gives bonus XP in battle, Range Plus is self-explanatory, and skills like Flare, Colossus, and Gamble increase attack. This makes the game very player phase oriented. You want to use a lot of these skills a lot of the time because often they are the most reliable ways to get kills as well as EXP for the characters who have Elite, like Leif or Karen. And later in the game, mages become utterly broken. Asvel and Tanya, yes, the character placeholder that is Tanya is a mage, both have Flare, which is plus 20 attack, and Triple. Flare is useful to kill high resistance mages and Falconites, as it adds raw damage, whereas Triple is great against low resistance but high HP monsters like Berserkers and Generals. The good news also is that Leif and other prime attackers will probably learn Pursuit and Continue, making them very reliable to kill. This system is very fun to play with, and at the moments in the game when you are faced with combat, strategizing around when to use skills, which skills to use, and when to conserve your skill points actually makes this a very fun and hands-on gameplay experience. There were many instances of varying intensity where I found myself economizing my skill points and stacking skills with one another to take down enemies. Even more unbelievable that this unique satisfaction was coming from a game that I had -0 expectations. It's pretty cool how of all things, a bootleg Fire Emblem game was the first to come up with combat arts, essentially. And I think this is the first time I've ever said this, but Kaga didn't do it first. Another unique feature in this game is that level ups aren't RNG at all. It's the complete opposite. You choose which stats to increase by 1 to level up. HP, SP, strength/magic, skill, speed, defense, and res. You can only pick 4 stats to level up, however. This kind of blew my mind when I saw this. I was expecting doo-doo growths, but no. You want a 55 strength endgame Leif? Work for it. You want a Pegasus Knight that can tank hits? Work for it. This is honestly a really cool mechanic, and actually isn't as broken as it seems. The reason being is that, yes, while you can stack strength, defense, skill, and SP every single time, endgame enemies are very powerful, and the stats you may have neglected could come back to bite you. I neglected to focus on Karen's skill, and she started to fall off in the last few chapters because she was struggling to reliably deal damage because she straight up missed more often. Stacking defense and resistance is really good, but if you don't have a decent enough HP stat to accommodate, you will struggle to survive baiting more than 2 late game enemies at once. Some stats definitely matter more than others. SP, skill, strength, defense are top priority. Speed is actually pretty worthless. Enemy hit rates seem higher than average anyway, and high speed doesn't do anything to double enemies. Res, while important for sure, is lesser of a priority for balanced characters since the game is challenging you with mostly physical attackers. Characters also come pre-packaged with bases of varying decency. Altena is great for everything except strength and defense, and you absolutely need to prioritize those because you won't be able to kill anything otherwise. Like I just mentioned, it isn't as broken as it sounds, and the manual progression is a refreshing experience compared to the growths of the official titles. It can make for some ultra powerful endgame units, and I gotta say, seeing my near 55 strength Leif tear through generals and heroes to get to the endgame boss by himself is actually very vindicating to watch. This game actually has some novel ideas that precede what official Fire Emblem would end up doing years and years later. Additionally, it has some mechanics that are wholly unique. With these 2 mechanics specifically, the SP system and the manual level ups, working at the same time, skirmishes with enemies are engaging, fun, and rewarding. Unfortunately, the positives of the combat are once again limited to the engine being very bad. You straight up can't see enemy inventories. You can view the enemy ranges, but you can't see how big their range can be since the camera locks in place. This makes stuff like high movement promoted units hard to predict where they might go, especially flyers. And this is a severe detriment when you need to deal with Jormungand mages. You have no idea what the properties of Jormungand even are until you stumble across the tome for your own use. I had absolutely no idea how these random ass sages were destroying my team when they appeared until I realized just how strong this tome was. Other more minor setbacks are that trading is literally the give item mechanic in FE1. Inventory management can only be done in the prep screen before every battle, and it's the clunkiest process of all time. You need to go into the unit list, select a unit, go into their inventory, select an item to transfer into storage, leave that menu, then go into storage, crawl through the item list, pick it, then crawl through the unit list, and then give it to them. Inventory management is horrible and takes forever. Also, the engine lags going through this list too, so that's doubly annoying. What else? Apparently there's no permadeath and killed units will appear later, and you can save in every turn like in FE4. Again, I have no opinion on the story as I don't speak Chinese and I have no idea what's happening, but it sounds like a mix between FE1 and FE5, and the non-Fire Emblem assets are kind of hilarious to look at in their own wacky bootleg way. All in all, this game has its highs and its lows. It has engaging gameplay, with unique and I dare say addictive game flow when the combat is working like it's intended, but the engine limitations, ridiculous map size, and enemy sparsity really drag down the experience. It took me about 6 to 10 hours to complete with my finger pressed against the turbo button. I would also unironically suggest this game to aspiring ROM hackers and game developers also. This game is very polarizing in its quality, which makes it easy to spot what makes it fun and what makes it actual garbage to play. Thank you all for watching, and I sincerely hope you enjoyed this out there video. Please leave a like and comment down below your thoughts. Have you ever heard of this game or played it? Will you give it a try? Did you even know something like this could exist? If you're new to the channel, please subscribe for more scripted content, hopefully every week, as this is now my full-time job, or at the very least, maybe 3 videos a month. Once again, please subscribe to my streaming channel too, or if you frequent Twitch, follow me there for my live streams, which I hope will also be daily throughout the weekdays and perhaps weekends. There are more details to come in a channel update video, but I'm letting you guys know now because often channel update videos don't really perform or get that many views compared to actual proper videos. So that's why I'm putting it here, and I'll be plugging it over and over and over and over and over again because we are full-on gamers now. Thank you so much for watching. Take care of yourselves. Deuces.